like a small.
So just a little bit of a disclosure here. I am not a marriage counselor by any means, nor do I ever want to give you advice on your marriage, really. What I am giving you is some tips and tricks on what to do to communicate your side of the story when you want to raise your children naturally and holistically, and your husband is not there with you. He feels differently. He wants to go with the man in the white coat who says to him that this is the things that you need to be doing for your child's well-being. I always think that a mother knows best. And a father knows best as well, but they don't have the same motherly instincts that we do. So we have to really go with our gut and see what is really working for your family and your family's health, okay? So if you are thinking that, vaccines might not be the best for your family, and this isn't really a video about vaccines, but the thing is that vaccines is such a hot topic in between a husband and a wife, one who thinks that vaccinating is a good thing and one who doesn't think that vaccinating is good. There's going to be a battle there. There's going to be a bit of a fight between the two of you. And so, not to say that isn't a good thing, because when we argue or we have different opinions about how we should do things, that can be a good situation for a marriage to work that out. When my husband and I were newly parents, I decided that I didn't want to vaccinate my son, and so he was dead set that was just the dumbest idea ever. And so this is what I did. I didn't give him any books to read, because I knew that the books would be thrown back in my face, just like how the pediatrician did. When we walked into the pediatrician's office for our son's first checkup, I handed him a book and I said, I don't want to vaccinate. I don't think it's the best choice for our family. And he basically threw the book in my face and was like, I think you're really making a mistake here. And basically wouldn't see us anymore. So that's okay. A month later, we moved from California to Wisconsin, and the pediatrician in Wisconsin was more receptive, actually, and was more respectful of our wishes. And so what happened was, it didn't really become too big of an issue anymore, because the pediatrician wasn't really pushing the idea of vaccines. But my husband was like, well, what if he gets sick? And what if he gets this illness? And what are you going to do? And, I was vaccinated, and we're going to have a hard time. And there's so many fears that go into it. And I didn't know. I didn't know the answer to it. All I had were my books and my prayers and my gut instinct. And so, for one, I didn't push him ever to read a book. And I think that worked for my marriage, only because I know my husband, and I think if I treated it more harshly rather than gentle, it would have been worse for us. Another thing that I did was I allowed him to speak his own mind and then come up with a solution together. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But what he saw years later is that our son was perfectly healthy, and that something that I was doing was working. And that we never took our son really to the pediatrician because he was never really sick. And so when we were expecting our second child, it wasn't really discussed if we were going to vaccinate or not vaccinate. It was just like, this is how we raise our children, and that's that. So taking some time to let that pass is really good too. That worked for my marriage. For my daughter, when she was born, my son was 4 years old, and so we were going to have a conventional childbirth in a hospital. But something inside of me said that this is going to be a different childbirth than what it was for my son. And so I hired a midwife, and we were going to do some laboring at home, and I wanted her to be the voice when I couldn't be the voice at the hospital. So she was going to say, you know, her wishes are not to have an epidural and blah, 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 blah. Well, what ended up happening is that I progressed so fast at home that I ended up delivering at home in the bathroom. And it was such a beautiful experience, a little bit scary, but at the same time, it was so, so beautiful. And it was the perfect birth story for my daughter. And I tell you this story just because, you know, the bond between mother and her children are so strong, and the connection that you're within your body and yourself is that your body knows what to do for your child and for yourself, and to trust that, to really, really trust that, and to use your voice as a woman and say, this is what's best for my children. The person in the white coat is going to want to say what they learned for themselves in years of schooling. And sometimes there's a time and a place for that. I'm not saying that that's bad, but what I am saying is that they're going to be using their textbook knowledge instead of their gut instinct. And sometimes, I would say most of the time, that the mother's gut is always right. So to really go with how you're feeling as a mom. And so if you're saying to yourself, this is not right for our family, okay, this is what you need to do in order to communicate that. So I'm going to tell you that in our next video. I will see you tomorrow, and I'll be right back in your inbox, so don't go too far.